See, I'm not like you. You don't look like you're coming from Venezuela because you look good. In Venezuela, the people are dying. They have no food.
Did you eat food in Venezuela?
I ate like quite a bit.
You ate a lot of food? Whoa, that's crazy. There's no food in
I
Venezuela.
ate 2 meals a day.
2 meals a
There
day.
was like this big shopping mall that had a bunch of like food.
Wow.
Like,
Do you know how much they are doing per day? The money in Venezuela, the people that are working there, $4 or $2 per month.
I know.
Yeah,
What do you
there's
think they can
sanctions.
eat?
There's sanctions on Venezuela.
That's pretty messed up, right?
Wow.
The one guy that was sitting
I mean,
targeting
that's
the club
nothing to
group.
be. That's nothing to policing.
You should stick around for the demo because we're
There's
going to talk about the
nothing
sanctions a lot,
with the
okay?
United States.
Oye, honey, deja eso, ven para acá.
We're all trying. We all want to go.
Who is paying you?
You guys all tell
Who
us.
is paying you?
I'm paying me too.
Honey, let's go.
I have off work today. It's Saturday. I'm here by
I don't know what
choice.
you're talking about.
It's the weekend.
Wando is a puppet.
We go to Venezuela, and then when we go, they're like, no, don't go to Caracas. Go somewhere else. But isn't that where people eat dogs? They're just gonna keep this caravan.
Darn, is she gone?
Yeah,
She has
always
stuff
is.
to
That
say.
was
I
an
have this
Hi.
report.
Oh,
He probably
wonderful.
wonderful.
Great.
I got the human rights report.
I carry this around in my bag.
Yeah. That's good. My response now that I've been
God, that's
I think I've been there. Have it highlighted where it says 40,000 excess. So do you want to ask
like
any questions?
executive summary.
And then it's like, 100,000
Yeah, and
people
then there's
going
like-
losing insulin. Having
breakdown. Just
their
like,
antiretrovirals.
I think I'm gonna have.
Yeah, okay. Hey, Sunil.
Yeah, ready?
Would you mind taking
Yeah, we're good. Sure.
Press conference under that tree yesterday. We had 2 Secret Service officers assigned to us. I think there were always 12 of us, How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, go put a wall. They should build a wall around it. That's what I told that guy. Yeah, Sharon had to go to a course today, for her son license. Lower back, I haven't managed lower back. She's a one-man. I went to Chris Charlie yesterday. Got in, put it wrong.
Oh, he's talking about fence.
I know, it's
Yeah, there's information about the fence and like the history. Yeah, I know. It's like, we have the Roger! 11. Wow. Good to see you.
Yeah. I think he's talking about the fence. I think he's really excited.
Yeah,
about
he
the
was.
new
Yeah, he was
wall.
talking about the fence.
Yeah.
Because, like, it has the history.
There's no such thing as first come, first serve. We don't believe in that.
Go ahead.
I have some too, but it's deep in my bag.
I mean, they're keeping it.
You don't have no right. Yeah, I gotta find out. I have to find out why. Oh! Look at this lady, beautiful smile, taking this picture.
Yeah.
Hell no!
Destroying the ozone.
She trying to butter me out. Yeah, man, because she don't realize how upset we be. Because you know it's against the law to wear that hat in D.C. Are you aware of that?
Oh, hey, what's
Because
up?
if somebody snatch that hat off his head, he run and catch you up and take the hat off. He gonna get charged for assault.
There's some right wing
No. It's against the law. You ever heard of Dragon City, young lady?
saying they're like, oh, where are you from?
It's
Oh, you're from
thank
DC?
you. Say that again.
Yeah.
This
DC,
city
they're like,
is
oh, you're from here, and I'm like,
Because
yeah.
the people that run this city, right, hate Trump. You wear that hat, like the guy that's...
Oh, no.
Hold up here.
Oh, no.
The
They
guy
just
that's
came up
hat
to me
man,
and
they
they're
charge
like,
him
oh,
for
what do you
assault.
know about Venezuela? And it's like, I know a lot about Venezuela. What do you
It don't make any difference. Even though he was right. In this city here, you're wrong. Oh, yeah, but she understood at the end. Look like they're doing a pretty good job. Hey, they're hot. Then they ask, I don't mess up, they ask a certain person a question. No, we're not. So you here to all these people? Yeah, please. What's nobody here? Huh? What's nobody here?
Yeah, can we try to like squeeze everyone in?
Yeah. Trying to squeeze in. Cineo.
I mean, it's a serious issue already. I think some people really want like you can't eat fish from Japan. Start off so good. They tested this was from Beijing University of, this was at the Second World Congress.
Do you have another codepig sign that I could hold? Codepig sign I could hold?
Here's a copy of that. Hello, you. Hi, you ready? You take a picture.
I sent an email to you. She got it too. You sent it. That's something this
necessary, I wouldn't be standing. Pardon me? No, it's not an argument. I walk away from those.
We don't fellowship with the Antichrist.
No, can't do it.
We don't fellowship with the Antichrist. We don't do that.
I didn't tell you wrong.
When you take your last breath, you'll see. 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 You sodomite, when you take your last breath, you'll see. When you take your last breath, you'll see. You'll take your last breath, you'll see. When you take your last breath, you'll see. When you take your last breath, you'll see.
George?
Hey.
Somebody should pick up a sign for this guy next time. He has a huge sign that says, so we can like use this sign. Oh, me?
Yeah. Other things like that. Yeah, I know. Pretty good. We can help us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, I can't. I try.
Okay, Jordan, you take this side.
Hey, how you doing?
وين رشيل؟
Maybe today I wish I'd ate something. I forced myself to eat I'd never told you 2 days out.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? Well, it is. Yeah. He was a bit of a lady. Yeah, speaking of these.
Not just walking upstairs, but being comfortable on the top.
No, no, thank you.
Kind of in the lights where you would be back. That was a nice place to work. Which way?
Like you can have this on one side and that on the other side. And then you really? Yeah. If you can have this one, you can use
There you go.
Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you. Very good to see you.
There's some evidence that agriculture, deforestation, and something like
Body coat paint.
Very. Anybody want to stream it?
Oh, so she's
That's a reaction.
I think you're gonna stream it?
Yeah, it's
On Facebook?
yeah, Facebook's Code live stream.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Of course.
They want to overthrow democracy.
That's fine. Yeah, I got the point. Okay, good.
No, I commented a lot of
Oh, really? Right. Right.
Were you there in the
I was working there. I didn't
Oh, is he back? Oh. No, he was there. Of course, he was there. There was a conspiracy theory. That was a crazy thing. Yeah, but the whole
I know. Actually, had a guy in there.
Yeah, we are.
especially after this
It's not, camera's not.
But he's got this.
Then you could see though.
Look who's here. How are you? Look who's here.
Hey, Sunil and hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, can we move the banner this way so the White House is in the shot?
Okay.
Hey, can we just shift everyone this way so?
I mean, the signs, the individual signs. People carrying signs in the middle, right?
Yeah. People with the signs can be in the middle. I just want to make sure people can see we're at the White House.
And Nico.
Is that good?
No, I can't see the White House.
Maybe go on that side.
Okay. So you can't see the White House.
I think we're switching sides with the band.
Yeah, because it's really upsetting.
This is a great.
People can be on this side.
Okay.
We're not you guys. You guys are good. People just with the signs.
What's your name? I'm Nico.
Check.
Oh, you're back. I saw you wandering. Oh my God. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I know.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming out. We're here to stand up today against this criminal and genocidal blockade that Trump has put in place by executive decree against Venezuela. And let's start it off with our favorite refrain. Hands up! Venezuela! 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 Woo! I had the great privilege to visit Venezuela recently. Just got back. It was one of the most important experiences in my life. We had the opportunity to go down there representing the Embassy Protection Collective. Many of us were involved in this struggle here in Washington, D.C. to protect the sovereignty and respect and uphold international law with regards to protecting the Venezuelan embassy here in Washington, D.C. We were, of course, as maybe you know, illegally evicted from that building where we were staying as the invited guests of the rightful owner of the building, the Venezuelan government, which represents the Venezuelan people. And we were received with such a warm greeting in Venezuela by all kinds of groups, social movement groups. People on the street were recognizing us and stopping us to tell us how much it meant that there were people here inside this country, which is working overtime to attack Venezuela, who are willing to stand up and fight back against these criminal attacks on the economy and the ordinary people of Venezuela. Purely ideological attacks, disgusting, despicable, and illegal under international law. I want to invite up Terry from Code Pink, who was also on our trip with us, a veteran of many trips to Venezuela, to share her thoughts.
Viva Venezuela! So I'm here to share with you today something that I hope the entire U.S. population can come to a greater understanding about, regardless of your political affiliation, that our tax dollars are financing the murder of all Venezuelan citizens by starvation. This is a matter of sanctions as a form of warfare. It is something that we do not overtly talk about in this country. We do not clearly understand it as a population. There's a real tendency for all of us to think there's no bombs being dropped on Venezuela, there's no boots on the ground in Venezuela. How bad can it be? There was a full blockade imposed on Venezuela by executive order Monday night, effective Tuesday morning, to stop everything and anything going into the country. Nothing can come in, nothing can come out. Food, medicines, supplies of all sorts. This is nothing but an attempt to murder the Venezuelan people on behalf of regime change by the United States government. So I just want to share a personal anecdote with you. I returned from Venezuela Wednesday morning. Was about my 14th or 15th visit there over the last 10 or 12 years. And it's amazing how resilient the Venezuelan people are. This is a story you are not seeing, hearing, or reading about in the U.S. media. You're not supposed to know how resilient they are. Life is difficult there, but it is amazingly normal considering everything they are up against. So let me just share with you a personal anecdote. Sunday night, I had the chance to join some friends for dinner. And we went out to a restaurant. Yes, we actually went out to dinner. The streets were safe enough to be out in the evening. And we joined some friends. I walked into the restaurant speaking English. And a gentleman at one of his, Venezuelan, at one of the tables came up and greeted me when I walked in the door. He had heard my U.S. English and came immediately over to me and said, "We are a peaceful people. Please go home and tell your government and your citizens we do not want war. We are not in a civil war. We do not want war. We do not want U.S. intervention. We want to be left alone to solve our problems on our own and in a peaceful manner." So I will ask all of you here today to please promote that message with your friends, with anyone and everyone you know in the media, and especially with your members of Congress and in the Senate. Venezuelans are peaceful. They are not on the verge of a civil war. They do not want U.S. military intervention. They want to be left alone to solve their problems, and in order to do that, this murderous blockade must be lifted, and I encourage all of you to spread that word far and wide.
All right, thanks, Terry. Let's try a new one. Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela!
Unblock Venezuela!
Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela! Trump, unblock Venezuela, Trump! Unblock Venezuela, Trump! Unblock Venezuela!
Trump! Unblock Venezuela!
Trump!
Unblock Venezuela!
Trump!
Unblock Venezuela!
Trump!
Unblock Venezuela!
Trump! Unblock Venezuela! Trump! Unblock Venezuela! Trump! Unblock Venezuela! Trump! Unblock Venezuela!
Unblock Venezuela! Trump!
All right, people, let's keep it going. You know, another interesting thing that I found out there in Venezuela, we like to talk to our friends and neighbors who are struggling for housing rights here in Washington, D.C. and around the country about the social missions in Venezuela, one of which called Misión Vivienda, which has created almost 3 million dignified housing units, which they make available basically for free to people who are accustomed to historically living in these like rundown shacks on the hillside in Venezuela. And that's 3 million units, which means 3 million families, which adds up to a significant portion of the entire population of Venezuela that's benefiting from these programs directly. So let's think about that. What does it mean to that program if these right-wing coup mongers that are allied with Trump, Abrams, and Bolton get their way in Venezuela? What's going to happen to all those housing units? They tell the people that are living in them, don't you want the deed to your house? Don't you want to own your house and not just live in social housing? It's a trick. It's a trick of privatization. They want to take that publicly owned wealth, all those units of housing that the people benefit from, and turn them into private property that can be sold on a market. And we know very well from our struggles here in DC around housing what happens when housing is a market commodity rather than guaranteed as a human right.
Can't afford it.
You can't afford it, that's right. It leads to displacement, the destruction of community, and this is a cynical attack on the community organizations which are the strength of Venezuela. We can't permit this. That's why we're standing here today against these and all the other economic, financial, political, social attacks against Venezuela. We're saying hands up!
Venezuela!
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 Woo! All right. Roberto, do you want to talk? You want to talk? You want to say a message? Yeah. Please welcome in our friend Roberto from Bolivia, a member of the MAS IPSP. He's going to talk to us about what Comandante Chavez means to the people of Venezuela and how the movement is pushing forward today. Chavez vive! Chavez vive!
Compañeros, una vez más, Venezuela es atacada ignominiosamente. Las acciones de las corporaciones estadounidenses que van envenenando día a día nuestra tierra, nuestros ríos, nuestros lagos, los mares, estamos completamente decepcionados de semejante actitud, de adoptar la economía de Venezuela en el propio territorio cuando le sirvió bastantes años, de cantidades inmensas de petróleo. Y ahora las oficinas han sido neutralizadas, los sistemas bancarios han sido neutralizados, la economía de Venezuela, soberana, de venta del petróleo ha sido neutralizado. No puede ser. Imagínense que yo me apodere de la economía de acá de mi compañero. Eso es lo que está pasando con Estados Unidos a la impositiva Venezuela. La acción es mundial, no es solamente de Venezuela. Vimos en Siria, vimos en Irak, vimos en Libia, vimos en Yemen, en el África, en Latinoamérica, en todo el mundo, no solamente es Venezuela. Las grandes corporaciones por el delito de que Venezuela sea indiferente al capitalismo intransigente, le crea un serio problema. Un ejemplo, hace 2 días, en Bolivia, mi país, resulta que Bolivia da los informes anuales de la lucha contra el narcotráfico a la Comunidad Económica Europea en su Comisión Antidrogas y a la Organización de Naciones Unidas. Bolivia es uno de los primeros países en cumplir con la lucha con el narcotráfico y resulta que Estados Unidos lo cuestiona. Creo que no están muy bien informados. Cada día van cometiendo equivocaciones tras equivocaciones y lamentablemente, aunque no crean, los movimientos populares de Latinoamérica están en movimiento. Nos vamos multiplicando cada día. Lo que está pasando en Perú, en Tía María, imponiendo corporaciones sin contratos gubernamentales menos legislativos a explotar los recursos naturales en Tía María, Perú. Otra sangría de las grandes corporaciones que no solamente están en Venezuela. El delito que todos estos países antiimperialistas, antieconómicos extractivos, es luchar por su soberanía y por sus riquezas. Jamás, no hay un ejemplo en el mundo donde Estados Unidos y sus corporaciones del occidente hayan dejado un ejemplo de un país que esté viviendo una vida feliz. No hay uno en ninguno de los continentes. El sistema neoliberal es lo más sangriento que existe y lo más desastroso, porque hay niños, madres, jóvenes que quedan frustrados, sin alimentos, sin estudios, sin asistencia médica. Y eso es lo que está pasando en todos los sectores en general. Venezuela, como los otros países, en estos momentos se convierte en el ejemplo de luchar por su soberanía, con un pueblo unido, con unas fuerzas armadas unidas, con los movimientos populares unidos, con los movimientos campesinos, indígenas y obreros unidos, que si no es verdad, hace rato ya hubiesen intervenido Venezuela. Esa unidad popular les ha generado una controversia jamás vista en la historia de la lucha de los pueblos por su soberanía. Y es Venezuela el ejemplo de hoy, el ejemplo de la persistencia, de la lucha unida en todos sus sectores, defendiendo sus intereses, defendiendo la soberanía, defendiendo la educación, defendiendo la salud, defendiendo la unidad intransigente en estos casos de toda una revolución. ¡Viva Venezuela! ¡Viva! ¡Viva Chávez! ¡Viva! ¡Viva la Latinoamérica unida! ¡Viva! Hasta la victoria siempre, compañeros.
Hands up!
Venezuela!
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 All right, let's talk about figures. Facts and figures, right? That's what the media is always teaching us to care about. And it is important. Here's some good ones that I'll share with people. We know from the Center for Economic Policy and Research Study, which I saw floating around out here earlier today in a hard copy, which is very good. We're very well educated here in the movement. That something like 40,000 Venezuelans have died as a direct result of the U.S. sanctions from the year 2017 in August until a few months ago. 40,000 people. And Trump has imposed on Venezuela now a total economic blockade. So things are going to just get worse. We can already see this. There's a large ship that's been stopped in the Panama Canal, which was headed for Venezuela, carrying 25,000 tons of soy. This is food for the people of Venezuela, protein that's being blocked. The insurance company that's insuring this shipment of food to Venezuela has been blocked from allowing it to continue to its destination. This is the danger of sanctions. This is why we understand that sanctions are a tool of war and a blockade, a genocidal policy targeting a sovereign people against international law, against all norms. We can't stand for this. 16,000 liver patients are in grave risk, probably more than that now after the blockade, because they can't get access to necessary treatment in Venezuela. You don't care about 16,000 liver patients that are at risk in Venezuela, sir, I guess. What happens due to these blockades that they impose on countries like Nicaragua, Cuba, Iran, and other places? Medical equipment, important medical equipment breaks down. And because we have this monopoly capital that exists inside the healthcare space, driven by the United States, when the U.S. imposes a blockade, you can't get spare parts to replace the broken ones in this medical machinery around the world. So people die as a direct result. More figures. 80,000 patients with HIV, 80,000 patients with HIV have not received treatment, retroviral treatment, since 2017 in Venezuela due to medicine being blockaded. If you ask Juan Guaido, the imposter, so-called, self-proclaimed in Venezuela, he says, oh, the blockade has a provision. It has a provision, don't worry, there's a provision, everyone, that food and medicine is allowed through. But guess what? We've seen over and over and over that this is not the case. Medicine is blocked, food is blocked. And if they don't directly block it like they're blocking this ship, the financial aspect of the blockade creates a problem for Venezuela, which may have enough money to buy these supplies, from conducting the actual transaction, the financial transaction to acquire these things. So you'll have a company in India, a company in Mexico, a company in Germany that's ready to sell these products to Venezuela. But the financial international blockade against Venezuela creates a situation where the payment does not go through. This is why it's a blockade and not simply an embargo. It's an internationalization of a unilateral economic embargo, which amounts to, it might as well be a naval blockade. Supplies are not getting through. That's the reality of sanctions against Venezuela and all these other countries. Venezuelan children, some of them participate in an international bone marrow transplant program. If a donor for bone marrow cannot be found in Venezuela, these children have the opportunity to go abroad, for example, to Italy, where there's a larger donor base, and receive treatment. This program is paid for, like many of the Venezuelan social programs, out of money that's created through the state oil company. That's how the profits of the state oil company are used, to protect the people, to get them the medical care, equipment, and attention that they need. But since the state oil company is under an embargo or a blockade or has had all of their assets frozen or seized by the U.S. government, what happened? You got these Venezuelan kids that are waiting for bone marrow transplant with donors at the ready in Italy, and now all of a sudden there's no way for them to pay for this treatment. There's no way for them to pay for their housing there. There's no way for them to get home because the funds that pay for this program have been frozen by the U.S. government. Shame on that. Shame.
Shame.
And now they're going to apply a full blockade, an act of economic terrorism, like they maintain against Iran, People's Korea, Cuba, Syria, Nicaragua. A full blockade like they put on Iraqis that led to the death of 500,000 people in Iraq or more. They're willing to spread disease and hunger in the population to pursue a change in the country's leadership that would turn this country upside down, like our friend Roberto was telling us about, and transfer all these public goods, all the public wealth that the Bolivarian Revolution has delivered to the people back into the hands of a wealthy minority elite. Are we going to stand for that?
No!
Are we going to let this happen?
No!
Are we going to stand by while Trump makes these fucked up decrees against our friends and family in Venezuela?
No!
Hell 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 no! One why no! Hell no! One why no!
Hell no! One by no! Hell no! One by no! Hell no! One by no! Hell no! One by no!
I'm going to introduce Patricio from the... All right, I'll let him introduce himself, Conrad.
Thank you. You can rest your... Hi there. Beautiful afternoon today to declare justice for Venezuela. This is something important that we need to share. There are peace negotiations right now. Nobody knows this. The media is not informing about all the efforts that are being done right now by several governments. I'm not sure you are aware of the fact that the opposition has negotiations. The opposition of Guaidó, it is in negotiations with the government of Venezuela, the legitimate government of Venezuela. These negotiations are sponsored by several governments, among them Norway, and they were, or they are, in theory, right now taking place in Barbados. So there are efforts to create an environment of reconciliation, to create an environment of peace in Venezuela. We need a lot of academics like me. We believe in a diplomatic solution for Venezuela. We are against war. We are against illegitimate interventions in the country. There is a war now. This is an economic war, and we need to be strong on demanding a pacific solution for the crisis in Venezuela. The U.S. government, Bolton, this week, he boycotted again again the negotiations between the opposition of Venezuela or Guaido and Maduro. The U.S. is not creating a constructive policy trying to solve the crisis in Venezuela. We have to be extremely clear. You maybe you don't agree with the Maduro government, maybe you don't agree with Guaido, but we have to be extremely clear. We don't agree with the boycott of the U.S. government against the possibility of reconciliation and peace in Venezuela. The U.S. government did exactly the same 3 or 4 years ago. We also had another round of negotiations. The opposition and the government of Venezuela were very close to find a negotiated solution, and the U.S. put a lot of pressure on the opposition to abandon the table of negotiation. That happens 4 years ago, and it's happening right now again. So that's a key element to understand why we have to support a negotiation between the opposition and the government of Venezuela, because the U.S. is not really doing anything to help the human rights, to help the humanitarian crisis. Is doing exactly the opposite. It's increasing the economic pressure on Venezuela, it's increasing the pressure on the opposition to not negotiate. And that's, you need to know it, you need to understand it, and you need to understand that this gentleman here knows I'm saying exactly the truth. We need a diplomatic and peaceful solution in Venezuela. Let me tell you this, when we had the embassy situation and this beautiful group of people were protecting the embassy just weeks ago, we interviewed a lot of opposition people on the street right there, and we asked them, do you agree? The question was very direct. Do you agree with U.S. military intervention in Venezuela? Do you agree with an invasion of Marines? And all of them say, yes, yes, I want it. It is on video, it is on Facebook. We have almost 30,000 views of that video, and a lot of comments saying, I'm very ashamed of my Venezuelan connationals. How you can accept an invasion of your own country is unbelievable. So we know we are on the right side of history. We know that because we don't accept war in Latin America. We had so many dictatorships, so many people tortured, missing, died. We are not going to accept that. We need negotiation, and the U.S. government needs to understand that if the U.S. government continues boycotting the situation on Venezuela, the possibility of peace, the U.S. government will be responsible for the 40,000 deaths so far that the blockade and the sanctions have created in Venezuela. 40,000 people have died in 3 years because of the sanctions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chávez vive!
Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! All right, I'm going to invite up another speaker. I'm going to invite up Martha, a hero from the Embassy Protection Collective, and here with the Women's Institute for Freedom of the Press today. All right, Martha.
I'm Martha Allen, Women's Institute for Freedom of the Press. Our organization was founded in 1972 to open up the media that was at that time controlled by a small number of corporations that controlled the information. At that time it was over 50. Now, in this day and age, it's 6. Huge corporations control the media. And it's very important because people do not know what's going on in Venezuela. If you read the New York Times, the Washington Post, or watch, the news, even Vice News, all of them. It's distortions. It's no wonder that people are confused about what's happening there. there is a people's media, because now there is an internet, information does get out. DC People's Media, Telesur, there's a lot of media that does get the word out, but not to the masses of people. So I think it's very important that we hold accountable the media for the distortions and misinformation that is getting out about what is happening. If people knew what was happening in Venezuela, the truth of this blockade and what is happening, things would change. Thank you.
Hands up!
Venezuela!
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 Hands up!
Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up! What's up?
Venezuela!
Hands up! All right. Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up! That's the world champ here. Venezuela! Venezuela!
Hands up!
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 Venezuela!
Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up!
Venezuela! Hands up!
Venezuela!
Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela!
All right, George, way to go. All right, we're gonna have another speaker here for everybody.
Greetings, my name's Fred Mills. I participated in the Foro Sao Paulo. There's 3 reasons that the Trump administration gives for its bellicose posture and the imposition of a blockade on Venezuela. First is that Venezuela, the claim is, presents a risk, a danger to the national security of the United States. This goes back to an executive order issued by the Obama administration in 2014. But let's see how ludicrous this is. How could Venezuela pose a national security threat to the United States? It's a country that has never been to war with another nation since its independence. Venezuela is a country that has no military bases outside its borders. Venezuela is a country that has brokered a peace accord for the conflict in Colombia. Venezuela is a nation that has declared the region a region of peace. So why the pretext of the Obama and then Trump administration to say that Venezuela poses a national security danger to the United States? There's two major reasons why this pretext is being used. First, it's the natural resources of Venezuela, the largest oil reserves in the world, the presence of cobalt, gold, and other industrial minerals. The Arco de Minero is a huge, huge reserve of industrial minerals. The second reason the Trump administration uses to justify its embargo against Venezuela is that it has humanitarian concern. So in the name of humanitarian concern, diabetics don't have access to their insulin for weeks at a time. If anyone here has someone in their life who's a diabetic, you know that in a matter of days, a lack of insulin can result in a major health crisis. If anyone here has someone in their life with high blood pressure, you know that a lack of access to medication for this condition can lead to serious health complications. So it's obvious that this is not about a humanitarian concern. And the third reason the Trump administration gives for this embargo and attack on Venezuela is that the U.S. is interested in democracy, in promoting democracy in Venezuela. And yet, it is now actively trying to sabotage talks between the Venezuelan government and the opposition. And in May 2018, the U.S. pressured the opposition not to participate in elections. Despite this pressure, the opposition inside Venezuela did run a candidate, Henry Falcón, and there were two other opposition candidates. So here we have democratic procedures being undermined by the Trump administration. Here we have claims that Venezuela poses a threat to the national security of the United States, of a country that's never been to war with another nation since its independence and poses no threat to the United States. And last, we mentioned that the Trump administration again and again says it has humanitarian concerns for the people of Venezuela. If you just look at our frontier with Mexico and the treatment of migrants and those seeking refuge in the United States, separating children from their families, raiding plants where workers are just trying to make an honest living, you cannot believe that this is about humanitarian concerns. So we say, hands off! Venezuela! 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 Venezuela! Hands off! 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 Venezuela! Hands off!
right, folks, I think we've been out here in the sun for a while. It's starting to come out from behind the clouds, so maybe we'll take that as our cue to wrap it up here. Let's get a strong photo with everybody that came out here to say hands off Venezuela today on this side, behind the banners, with the tall banner. Grab a sign. We'll get a picture to send to our friends and comrades in Venezuela to show our support with them. Folks that are just walking by, if you feel moved by this message and this cause, feel free to jump into this photo with us.
Every useful is a universally useful tool.
We'll just crush in, we'll figure it out. Hey, are you?
Yeah, wait, I'm gonna put it on a timer. I want in. Oh, okay, yeah.
And the people on over here move in a little bit. Yeah, go down in front.
On the left, over you. You're out of the picture. Still out of the picture.